Hello everyone. This is Mohammed Afzal, Senior Lecturer at Birmingham City University, United Kingdom. I'm presenting on building smart biomedical knowledge repository. This work is done in collaboration with HAVCA, the Health Evidence Knowledge Accelerator Initiative, which we regularly do meetings on developing standards, EBM standards, for standardizing the scientific biomedical knowledge. So this idea is to develop a smart open repository for the documents which currently in the form of PDF large documents. So the current form of scientific knowledge or scientific literature is problematic in communication, in understanding, in accessibility, as well as reusability. It takes a lot of human time. So we want to reduce this time by making the repository computable repository. How to make it computable? The large documents, the PDF documents, the books, the articles, the guidelines that are available in the PubMed or the PMC repository into small, computable, shareable entities. How we do that? First of all, we have to process the documents and put the processable units in this new repository. This new repository have different set of contents. First of all the non-medical entities should be available, should be identifiable, and we can use LLMs or natural language processing algorithms for that. We also have to maintain the relationship that exists in medical entities. Because this repository main target is EBM, evidence-based medicine, so we have to keep the evidence intact. Similarly, we have to also take care of the statistical concepts and other metadata. The ultimate target is to make this repository fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. The first two we can get directly, but the other two, the last two, we can get when this semi-structure or structure repository change to the file resources, HL7 file resources. So once we achieve this, we can use this information or the content of the repository for multiple applications, like we can use as a data set for AI models, for data analytics, for systematic reviews, learning health systems, as well as decision support systems. So this is the new feature. We can bring this readable data to computable data. Thank you very much.
From the National Institute of Health Data Science at Peking University. It's an honor to be part of the recording for this lightning talk at MCBK. Our abstract's name is Machine Learning Based in Hospital Mortality Prediction for ICU Patients, based on clinical data in the first 3 hours of sepsis. First of all, please allow me to give a brief introduction to sepsis, a highly life-threatening organ dysfunction. It's a common critical illness with a high in-hospital mortality, so it pushes us to develop a predictive tool for assessing the in-hospital mortality of sepsis patients in the ICU. This can help identify high-risk patients in the early stages, enabling clinicians to provide timely and optimal interventions for reducing in-hospital mortality. Building on previous sepsis prediction models and clinical experience, we have selected the following predictive variables for our study. The innovation in our research lies in choosing the comprehensive set of clinical variables within the first 3 hours of suspected infection, as outlined in the 2016 Surviving Sepsis Campaign Guideline. Additionally, the volume of crystalloid fluid taken within the first 3 hours are also incorporated as variables. Compared to other sepsis mortality prediction models, we allow for the earlier identification of high-risk patients and the timely implementation of interventions. Our data is sourced from the MIMIC4, a large open critical care database. Our study cohort consists of 25,600 sepsis patients within the ICU. 13,509 patients meet the criteria after the variables were screened. Data preprocessing have been completed, and the fluid volumes have been computed according to guideline-defined timeframes. Lastly, we will employ 3 classic and widely used machine learning algorithms for constructing the predictive model and perform comparisons. Extreme gradient boosting and random forests are more precise but relatively complex, while logistic regression offers strong interpretability but has higher bias. Therefore, we will consider all 3 methods to select the optimal model. That concludes the content of the lightning talk. I extend my sincere gratitude for your attentive listening and appreciate all the feedback and suggestions provided. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zheng Guohang from National Institute of Health Data Science at Peking University. It is my honor to share our preliminary research work today. Radiological examination is an effective way for inspecting chest. However, the diagnosis of radiological images is also challenging and time-consuming for radiologists with different experiences. Because CXR, which means chest X-ray radiograph, often contains multiple pathologies. For this reason, we propose an approach based on deep neural network, contrastive learning, and hierarchical clustering for help automatically diagnose CXRs. We used a efficient net and convolutional neural network as backbone and the formal concept analysis as the hierarchical clustering method. The benchmark dataset is MIMIC4, one of the largest publicly accessible benchmark datasets for multimodal medical data analysis. We used the hierarchical clustering method for the instance discrimination. We first clustered CXRs by attributes and organized clusters into a graph with hierarchical structure. Given a CXR, we can quickly identify its positive and negative CXRs by the hierarchy of the graph. In the training phase, the input data were triples comprising anchor positive and negative CXR embeddings. We used a contrastive loss function of deep neural networks to concentrate similar CXRs while diffusing dissimilar ones. Combined with k-nearest neighbors algorithm, our approach can first index historical clinical records and then detect radiological findings existing in a CXR. Notably, this approach can be transferred to solve different downstream tasks. We tested our approach in the similar clinical case retrieval task. In the preliminary results, there were about 4% of improvements in the matrix of the top 5 average precision. In the future work, we will verify this approach to other benchmark datasets. And thank you for your attention.
Hi, and thanks for joining us today for this lightning talk on extensible metadata. I'm Peter Boisvert, a member of the Knowledge Systems Lab in the Department of Learning Health Sciences at the University of Michigan Medical School, and metadata plays a critical role in our modeling of CBK from a systems infrastructural point of view. Today, we're going to talk about a perspective shift, and in the slide you're looking at, that's really a shift from that sense 1 to sense 2, the idea of linked metadata. If you look at a book on Amazon, you'll see metadata from at least a dozen system sources and communities, and it's usable and useful for each intended audience and for the particular systems used to organize and access it. But the life cycle of a book spans many systems, many audiences, new editions, formats, new audiences, etc. CBK metadata, and any metadata should be extensible because not all useful metadata can be found before it's created or at the moment of the artifact's inception. And we think that extensible metadata, or really extended metadata, may come from different communities of practices, arise in different systems, and may change over time. The same process of organizing and accessing computable knowledge inevitably extends also across multiple use cases, systems, novel scenarios, audiences, etc. It's critically important to avoid isolated and siloed approaches, which involve creating and recreating metadata. Mappings lead to loss of semantic meaning and context. So rather than a core set of elements to unify the world, we believe there's value in the second approach, which is linking that metadata across systems. So the technology exists, the linked data models, the schemas and standards, ontologies, vocabularies, a lot of work's being done in that area. But the World Wide Web itself is an example of extensible metadata at a global scale. It's explicitly a linked data system, and we look to that level of infrastructure to help us think about how metadata supports organizing, discovering, trusting knowledge at scale. And so we want you to ask yourselves, as we are asking ourselves, how do we expand stakeholder engagement in metadata creation, and who benefits from the ability to create metadata? And how do we extend that control across multiple communities and multiple systems over time? Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jiayu Wang. I come from National Institute of Health Data Science of Peking University. The title of my presentation is Computable Phenotyping for Type 2 Diabetes. Diabetes is a serious public health problem around the world. Conventionally, diabetes was classified into two types, type 1 and type 2. In practice, due to the high degree of heterogeneity among diabetes, the clinical characteristics and outcomes of type 2 diabetes patients are very different as well. A data-driven subgroup analysis was conducted on diabetes cohort in Sweden, and 5 subtypes were identified. Several studies have been conducted around the world to validate the existence of the subtypes. With the advances of big data, the concept of computable phenotypes was proposed to classify patients into different subtypes based on clinical data characteristics. Therefore, the aim of this work is to using a computable phenotyping tool to classify diabetes patients in China. Data of diabetes patients in a hospital in Beijing was used as data source. Patients with data of 5 variables recorded around the time of diagnosis were included. According to the central point value of each variable in the 5 subtypes identified by the Sweden study, the distance between the clinical vector of each patient and the central point vector of each subtype was computed. And then each patient was classified into the subtype with the shortest distance. The patterns of diabetic complication occurrence were analyzed also. Unlike population-based cohorts, clustered variables of most patients in EMR database were collected at different visits. Thus, we took one variable's measurement time as the central time. The measurement time of the other 3 variables is within 3 months before or after the central time. Our results showed that after adjusting gender and age, one subgroup named SIDD had a higher risk of diabetes retinopathy than others. In conclusion, the computable phenotyping tool developed in this study had the capability to aid physicians to grouping type 2 diabetes patients, and thus has the potential to personalize medicine. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us to hear our short report about the NICE computable implementation guidance and where that's going next. My name is Philip Scott, and I'm the co-chair of MCBK in the UK. So the background is that back in November 22, we ran our first collaborative event based on the NICE guideline for adult type 2 diabetes, where we did some initial brainstorming and data analysis. We followed that up with a series of sprints over the period January to March, and then had a second collaborative event in March 2023. We're using the World Health Organization Digital Adaptability Kit as a technology neutral model to represent the various information artifacts from that guideline.
Hi, I'm Charlie McKay from the Professional Records Standards Body, and we've been, alongside the work with NICE, developing a diabetes record standard, which includes all the information items that are used when you're treating a patient with diabetes. And as that standard was developed, a lot of user feedback came saying an information record standard is good, but we also need consistent form definitions so that we're presented with the same set of that subset of that data item as we work on different systems and in different organizations across the NHS. So the benefit of establishing those consistent forms is that we get consistency for direct care. A healthcare professional working in one organization can pick up and work with the IT systems in other organizations. But also it provides consistent data for guideline evaluation and clinical audit to check for consistent implementation of guidelines and for direct decision support. So we're developing this set of templates as a collaborative effort, looking at what template definition formalism to use. There's an ISO form model that we're looking at. Maybe it'll be file questionnaire response, and we're going to be exploring that with the stakeholders. And then we'll be co-developing those templates with a set of 4 pilot sites across the UK and working with patients, healthcare professionals and system suppliers to look at what the content of those templates need to be.
Hello, my name is Sean Rowick. I'm Associate Director for Data Access and Analysis at NICE. And from a NICE perspective, I've been leading some of this computable work with my other colleagues. So in terms of developing the DAC work, we've also been testing how we can use the templates for the DACs and the subsequent GP templates, as well as considering how we can use these to develop queries. So first of all, we've commissioned the NICE Collaboration Centre for Indicator Development to help us develop the DAC for chronic kidney disease quality standard. So they'll be helping to actually develop the product and the details of it, as well as test it with some of their pilot general practices. We've also been helping to support implementation of the DAC for CKD with a test bed with some primary care networks to see how they work in practice, and again, provide feedback on how they find the product. And then finally, we'll be using the DACs for queries to test for primary care data sets. So in England, we have some large primary care data sets, such as Clinical Practice Research Data Link, or CPRD, and Open Safely. So we'll be using these to complete the feedback loop of the DAC and hopefully provide some important insights into what's happening with CKD and type 2 diabetes.
So our next step following these things that we've described is a further meeting on the 16th of October to review where we've got to with the templates and the conformance outcome queries. And then we'll go on to think about functional and non-functional requirements, feeding back to NICE on methodology, feeding back to the World Health Organization on ways to optimize the DAC, and looking at tooling and process for scaling up the DAC into implementable models, including the use of FHIR Clinical Guidelines Implementation Guide and BPM Plus for Health. So thank you for listening, and we look forward to your questions.